everybody. I'm George Williams. I am the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas.
And I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And today we're going to do a video about things you can do with the authorized values in Koha. Alternative authorized values, I think, might be a good title for this. And this came up because there was a question, somebody in the reports channel on the Bywater Slack channel, James Mitchell, and I don't know James, but he had a question about, his actual question was, is there any way to insert a dropdown before a report is run with a custom list of values, i.e. a dropdown for non-authorized values columns? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, because I do that all the time. It's pretty simple. And we've actually already talked about it, so briefly. So if you go to our website for koha-US, is at koha-us.org. And if you click on Learn, you get this list of educational resources. And all of the videos are under Watch Koha-US original training videos. And if you scroll down to episode number 7, like versus equal, we touched on this topic in that episode back, oh, I don't even remember how long ago that was. Episode 7, that was like, that was last fall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while, so probably won't hurt to talk about this again, but you know, everybody is probably familiar with a report, you know, where you've got that, you can create a drop-down list in a report so that instead of having to type something in over and over again, you get a list of values. And so those values come from a few different places, and they're all described pretty well in the Koha wiki, SQL wiki. And that can be found on the Koha wiki under tips in section 1.2.7 runtime parameters. There's instructions there for how to use the different authorized values categories. Plus, you can also use branches, item types, and date and category code, including, and then any authorized value category that you've got in Koha.
Yeah, those make working on reports so much easier.
Yeah, you can go to extremes if you know what you're doing, and if you want to have fun, you can end up with something like this. Wow. Where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drop downs in the parameters for this report. So that's, you know, that's an extreme example, but I don't think any of those drop downs in my kitchen sink shelf list report are standard authorized values. So I thought I would just walk through this really quickly again. You know, here's a basic report. It's home branch and a count of item numbers at each branch. And if we look at that report, I mean, that's all there is. There's nothing there. It's just select items home branch and count items item number from items. And so there's no variables there at all. Mm-hmm. And when you're learning how to do reports, the next thing you can do is you can do this, where we've just got it locked into one home branch. You can hard code items home branch equals Atchison, and then that's just going to give me a count for one library.
Right, which is good if you're running a report monthly and you're doing it for the same purpose and only you are using it for that particular purpose. That's totally fine. It's easy.
Or if you've only got one branch.
Yeah.
If you've only got one library, then you don't even need to put a limiter in there at all. For my situation where we've got 50 plus libraries, The next thing that you kind of learn how to do when you're writing reports is you can just enter a value. We could say, but then you have to type it in each time, which means you have to spell everything correctly. But the way you do that is you do the items home branch, and here you can use a like or an equals, and you do the double angle brackets, enter a value. And when you run that, that's what gives you this place where it says enter a value. But you know, the reason that I don't write those kinds of reports for staff here is that they're going to say it doesn't work right. I'm going to get emails saying I can't get this report to work, and it's because they're spelling something wrong. That's where the dropdown comes in handy, because then you can just choose a library from the dropdown. And the way you do that, like we just said, on the wiki page, it shows you just do the same double angle brackets, you type whatever text you want there, but then pipe branches will get you that drop-down list of branches. I've forgotten which one I was on. That was number 4, I think, wasn't it? So there's a built-in way in Koha to get an all. And so you can choose between whether you want all the branches or just one at a time. And that's, you do the exact same syntax, the double angle brackets, descriptive text, and then the pipe, branches, colon, all.
And that's a good example of, you know, if the system doesn't do something you want, ask for it, because that was something that I did ask for. I said, we need a way to be able to select everything in the list, not just one thing. Or so, you know, that's a step in the right direction there. You can't
use this,
select certain ones from that list, but you can select all now.
Yeah, this solves a lot of problems for a lot of libraries. And I use that development as an example of how a good development process works, because you said to somebody, wouldn't it be great if all was an option on those drop downs? And then Nick from Bywater Solutions started development, and I saw that it was in process, and I said to him in a follow-up on that development, I said, hey, if all is always there, I've got some reports that are going to time out and they're going to crash because somebody's going to accidentally select all, and there's going to be so much data there that the report's going to crash and there is never going to be a result. So is there a way you can make all optional? And so he made it optional. You have to add the colon all in order for it to work. So my situation is I've got a couple of libraries that are groups. We have the Donovan County Library District, which is one library, but it's got 4 separate branches. So if we were to just run this report for them, and they wanted to get data for all 4 of their libraries, just their 4 libraries, they would have to run a report. They would have to run this for Elwood, then run it for Highland, and run it for Troy, and then run it for Wathena, or they could run it for all and then just chop out the data that they don't want. So what I've got, what I did to make it easier for them and for our other library that is in that situation, is I use a separate authorized values table. And this way I can do more than just the normal branches. And so I've got it set so that I can run it just for Donovan County, all 4 of their branches at once, or Prairie Hills, all 4 of their branches at once. And the way that I do that is by creating an authorized values category that I just happen to call it. I don't know why I chose L, but I put an L in front of any authorized values categories I create. just to keep them all in one place in the authorized values table. I think at the time I was thinking L, nothing begins with L in the authorized values. And of course, there's like 10 things that begin with L. I just did it off the top of my head. But the way that I did this is I went in and I created one row I created a category called L branch. And then for each library, I created a new authorized values for L branch where I just said, you know, DONI wildcard, and then all, I think I did Donovan County all. And actually, I don't know if this is going to give me an error because there's already that same. Yeah, I can't recreate it because there's one that already exists. But that's all I had to do was I had to go in and I created one separate entry for each library. So I've got the authorized value as the branch code, but then at the top, I've got the authorized value for all libraries as a wildcard. And then if we go down here to Donovan County, all 4 of those branch codes start with DONI. So I've got Donovan County all is DONI wildcard. And for Prairie Hills, all of those start with PH, and I don't have anything else that starts with PH. So it's just PH wildcard gives me that Prairie Hills all schools. And I do that not only with the branch codes, but I've also got shelving locations. We have 3 main shelving locations for adult, children's, and young adult. But I have 3 libraries that they have a display location called Baldwin City Adult, Baldwin City Children's, Baldwin City Young Adult. In this way, I've got this separate authorized values list, so I can do display Leavenworth all, and it's going to give me a report that'll show me a count of all of the items that are in that shelving location. So I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of extra authorized values tables set up so that I can run all kinds of reports and do all kinds of crazy things. And as a matter of fact, the biggest drawback with these is keeping them up to date. Because if I add a new shelving location, or if we add a new collection code, or a new item type, or a new library, I have to go back and those don't update automatically in the authorized values table. I have to go back in. So I actually have reports to help me keep the authorized values synchronized with the other categories. So for locations, if I add a new location, I can go in and run this report, and it's going to tell me where I've got possible things that I need to update. And it's not a beginner's report because it's a union. What I've got is I've got one group of authorized values checking to see if there's blank spaces where they match in the other authorized values. And then I've got a union that does exactly the opposite and gets me this nice, it would be a separate episode to go into details of how to create this report. But I can see the places where there's a difference between my LLOC table and my LOC table. Right. So that's, how you can use these in reports, and creating them, like I said, is really easy. You just got to go to authorized values, create a new category, which to do that, all you got to do is click on create a new category. We'll call this one DLOC. And then you just, once you create it, you have to do add an authorized value, and you just create those to do whatever you want them to do. The possibilities are limitless. Now I'm going to delete that category because that's the last thing I need is another category to confuse me.
So
That's how you can use them in reports.
let me ask you this. So you're using the value in a like term. Can I don't know if you can answer this question, but could you use, like, okay, you had some groupings that you could use part of a phrase in a wildcard to get a group of libraries. What if the libraries didn't have anything in common in their name? Could you do something like, all the names in there and
chain them together like in an array?
Put them in there, and instead of using a like function, what about putting it in an in function?
I don't know. I've never tried that.
It'd be interesting to see if,
I suppose that it probably would work. I don't use in very often. Not because just because I didn't learn it until later on in the game. So it wasn't something that I learned in SQL early on.
I'm just thinking, there may be situations out there where the wildcard, the partial name and wildcard might not work for everybody's situation, but maybe if you had names, I don't know if you'd have to put them in quotes or what.
I think that might be the issue there, is if you have more than the authorized values, I think there's a 10-character limit on what can be in, when you have an authorized values category like I'm not 100% sure, and this may have changed over time, but I think the actual authorized value, I think there might be, I think there's a 10-character limit in that first field. So if it's going to be anything that's going to be more than 10 characters, that might be problematic. But that might just be for some of the things like item type and collection code. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the database is like at that level. But I do seem to remember there being an issue if you use more than a specified number of characters. But I could be wrong on that, and it's something that may have changed over time. But I have another use for authorized values that I can show everybody too.
Cool.
So let me close a few things here, get the number of tabs down to a reasonable number. I have a set of authorized values that are alternatives to what are used in the bibliographic frameworks. So I have, we used to, these are ones that I used to use for Hoopla when we used to import records from Hoopla, which we don't do anymore now, thanks to the Hoopla plugin that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But when we did import Hoopla records, I would have this problem where there would be a Hoopla record in our catalog for, let's say, All the President's Men by Woodward and Bernstein might be on Hoopla. And then one of our libraries would get a copy of All the President's Men. And instead of going out and downloading a new record for it, they would just attach their physical copy to the same record as the electronic edition of All the President's Men. And then at the end of the month, when I would go to delete, when Hoopla would drop that title and I would go to delete the record from our system, I wouldn't be able to delete it because somebody had attached a bunch of physical copies to records of books. That's just one example, but this happened all the time where people would, go in, and even though they were told and trained to not do this, they would still manage to attach physical copies to Hoopla records. So what I did is I started out by creating some authorized values that these are a match. This one is called Framework Hoopla 952.8. And it's just my list of item types that we used only for Hoopla items. So let me open up a new window and go to my bibliographic frameworks. And I have this one framework that we only used for Hoopla items called digital assets. And if I look at the mark structure for this, I'm going to go to 942. In 942C, normally 942C is the item type. And normally what you see here in authorized value is item type. On the normal bibliographic framework, this is the authorized value as item types. For the Hoopla records, what I did is I created these authorized values, and where did it go? So if I tie this bibliographic framework 942C to my framework Hoopla 952A authorized value, pretty sure that's the right one. Or no, I want 952.8.
Right.
Yeah, that one. When I go to a record that is that's using that framework, instead of getting the whole list of item types, when I edit the 942, I just get the list that are in that authorized value that I've made part of this framework.
Nice.
So, you know, earlier I showed you we had that, oh, excuse me, my phone's going off. There we go. Earlier I showed you we had that long list of shelving locations. I have one of these set up so that, you know, most of those shelving locations, like I said, adult, children, and young adult are the primary ones we use. Everything else is a temporary shelving location. So to keep people from putting temporary shelving locations at the bibliographic level, I have a list, I have an authorized value list that just has adult, children, and young adult in there, so that nobody can accidentally put the wrong shelving location at the bib level on an item, on a title. And the same is true for collection code. I've got that same list of collection codes that are only available in this frame, that should only be used for this framework. They're just part of the way that the bibliographic record is built from the framework. And the same is true if we go back to this framework and look at the 952. I've got the same thing where if we look at the subfields, the 952A gets its values from framework Hoopla 952A. The B gets them from 952, or the A and the B are the same. Then the C, which is the shelving location, gets its data from Dropdown from another place. Mm-hmm. And the Y and the 8 get them from those different values that I've set up, so nobody can accidentally add an item. This is what happened after I started using this. People would call me and then say, I'm trying to add an item, and my only choice for a home library is digital content. Why is this broken? And I would have to say to them, it's not broken. You shouldn't be adding an item to that record. And so here, you know, in the item level, we can pick any of those temporary, we can pick those main 3 or any of the temporary ones because I'm not modifying the shelving location. But the home library, the item type, and the collection code are just limited to those few choices that I want them to be limited to just for this framework. So
I'm surprised you haven't found a way through jQuery or through the authorized values to put in an explanation as to why they can't do it.
It's less important now because we're not using this framework anymore. We're not adding the Hoopla records. If we go forward and move to use the Cloud Library plugin, then I'll probably have to start. But I probably could. It wouldn't be that hard. So, but that's just another way to use the authorized values. There's a ton of things that you can do with the authorized values. There's probably other ways that that you can use them that I just haven't thought of yet.
Oh yeah, you know, you think about where any of these authorized values are actually implemented. If they're implemented in certain areas, you know, if that area is programmable, like the frameworks where you can assign the authorized value, then yeah, you could certainly do custom lists with the authorized value in those areas as well.
Yeah, we use them for patron attributes. We use them for in a ton of different places, and so there's just a ton of different ways you can use them. And those are the two that you know, when I saw the comment from James Mitchell, I figured we hadn't done a really in-depth video about using authorized values, so I thought it would be something good to talk about. So
awesome. Well, George, thank you very much for showing us a little bit more about the custom authorized values, or as you put it, the alternative authorized values.
yeah.
I really like that. And I just wanted to point out, while you're on this page, I had revamped the video list a little bit. We're putting highlighting the most current video up at the top, the latest episode, right, and then the rest I did in reverse order because, you know, usually it would start from the beginning and go, and you have to scroll all the way down. This way you don't have to do as much scrolling if you're just keeping up with our videos.
I know scrolling was making me exhausted at the end of the day.
Well, who knew we were going to get this far out in videos? I've really enjoyed doing these videos with you, and I feel like we're getting a lot of good content out there. So
yeah, we're going every other week, and we're on. This will be episode 24, so that means we're almost at a whole year.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. I think we might have missed. We might have had a couple times where it was 3 weeks between videos or something, but I think it's been about a year.
Yeah, yeah. So
we should figure out when exactly a year is, and figure out some way to have some kind of a party.
Exactly. Yeah, I noticed the other day too. I think it's just the Koha newsletter that goes out. They mentioned our Hoopla and Cloud Library plugin videos that we've done recently. So
cool.
Thank you for including us in your newsletter. And just a reminder to everybody, we love feedback and questions. If you have questions or things that you would like to see in upcoming videos, please let George or I know, or please make comments on the videos. Let us know that you're watching the videos. Let us know what you like. We love finding comments amongst the videos, and we welcome many more.
You know, a great example here would be if you've got another thing that you're doing with the authorized values that we didn't talk about, tell us.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Well, until 2 weeks from now, we'll see you later.